It was in the grand halls of Zara Prime, perched high upon the luminous cliffs of Chalhathran, that Queen Seriphus once stood in regal splendor, surveying the glittering court assembled beneath the glimmer of twin suns. Tall columns of cerulean stone, hewn from the heart of distant quarries and engraved with ancient runes, lined the perimeter. Echoing footfalls and hushed whispers filled the colossal chamber where the Zirin High Council had convened to witness a decision they thought unthinkable. King Valor, her husband of several centuries, was about to cast her aside, severing the sacred bonds of matrimony and duty. The reason was as simple as it was cruel: her inability to bear an heir. Seriphus, cloaked in a gown woven from rare star silk, felt each thread grow heavier as Valor's proclamation resonated through the hall. A sudden hush enveloped the spectators. No one dared speak or even shift upon their feet. They merely stared at the queen's delicate figure, illuminated by the pale, ethereal glow of 1,000 flickering orbs suspended in midair. Those orbs, made by the finest artificers of Zara, had once danced in patterns of celebration whenever the king and queen appeared together. Now, they flickered in trembling uncertainty, as if uncertain how to illuminate a tragedy unfolding. The High Council's leader, an elder statesman named Asteros, with long, braided hair that sparkled like molten silver, stepped forward. In a voice laden with sorrow, he decreed that the bond that had united King Valor and Queen Seriphus for 3 centuries was to be dissolved. Custom dictated that the monarchy's bloodline must continue, and if the queen could not provide a direct heir, then, as the logic of tradition demanded, the union must end. Seriphus tried to protest. She lifted her chin, tears gathering at the corners of her silver-flecked eyes, and began to speak. Her voice trembled, yet it carried the gentle resonance of hope long nurtured and now threatened. She begged for a reprieve, for time to consult the greatest healers in the galaxy, for the possibility that an heir might still be forthcoming. But Valor did not soften. His stern demeanor, once tempered by the warmth of love he had professed in their youth, revealed only the ironclad resolve of a ruler who cared more for legacy than for love. At that moment, her identity as queen evaporated before her eyes. The regal mantle that had once adorned her shoulders became a weight too cruel to bear. She felt the collective gaze of Zara's citizens upon her. Some were sympathetic, some curious, and others merely watchful, as if witnessing an inevitable shift in the tides of power. In those tense moments, the once glorious union was dissolved with a single, dispassionate stroke of law. Thus, on that same day, Seriphus packed what possessions she could carry within a shimmering satchel of starlight fiber. Exile was both command and refuge. The king, in a final show of callous generosity, provided her with a vessel fit for one last royal journey, though it was more of a rebuke than a gift. She left in silence, refusing an escort or farewell ceremony. She would not allow the courtiers to witness the final moments of her heartbreak. As her ship, the Astral Dawn, lifted off from the palace docks, she gazed out a porthole at the spires and domes of Zara Prime. Light from the twin suns glinted off the burnished towers, and for an instant, she recalled the day she and Valor had stood on that very dock, exchanging vows that promised eternal unity. Those memories stung her heart more sharply than any blade. She could almost hear the strains of the Talarian overture, the official music that had once heralded their wedding procession. Now, the only music was the hum of the ship's engines as they carried her away, not on a triumphant journey, but an odyssey of sorrow. At the helm, her hands shook with mingled rage and desolation. She charted a course toward an unassuming star in a remote sector, Sol, the star that hosted Earth. She chose Earth not by whim or fancy, but because in Zirin lore it had long been described as a world of paradoxes, simple yet complex, primitive yet capable of greatness. Humans, she had heard, were endowed with extraordinary resilience and an innate sense of hope. Something about those traits beckoned her, as if that fragile hope might shelter her own wounded spirit. The voyage was silent, punctuated only by the hiss of the ship's life support systems. She wandered the empty corridors of the Astral Dawn, occasionally pausing to gaze out at the star-sprinkled vacuum. A swirling tapestry of nebulae and distant galaxies stretched before her, indifferent to her plight. Night after night, She found herself at the observation deck, recalling fragments of her youth. The first time Valor had taken her hand, the days of laughter that lit up her world like 1,000 joyous suns, and the moment she had first been hailed as the hope of Zara's future. Now, even the memory of her name as Queen felt hollow and broken. At length, after countless hours of subliminal drifting, the majestic, blue-green orb of Earth came into sight. From orbit, she observed swirling clouds and vast oceans. Continents sprawled below like living mosaics, brimming with life. She took in a trembling breath, acknowledging that this was her new beginning, albeit forced upon her. With measured determination, she guided the ship to a lonely corner of the planet, a clearing in the Adirondacks, near the eastern coast of a land known as the United States. She set the vessel down in the hush of night, the trees bearing witness with rustling leaves. She stepped from the craft, cloaked in a simple, hooded garment that concealed her glowing skin and shimmering eyes, her hair wound tight beneath a cloth to prevent its luminescent strands from betraying her origins. The air tasted sweeter than she had anticipated, and a gentle breeze stirred through the pine trees, carrying whispers of forest creatures unseen. She felt a brief pang of gratitude. This planet, though less technologically advanced than her own, welcomed her with the hush of untamed nature, far from prying eyes. With cautious steps, she made her way down deserted roads until she reached the outskirts of a city both bustling and indifferent, New York City. Even in the late hours, electric lights blinked and shimmered, and her alien senses detected a constant thrum of life that felt like a curious symphony. She navigated the sidewalks, blending into crowds that paid her no heed. Her wide, inquisitive eyes absorbed towering buildings, neon signs, and the vibrant tapestry of humanity. Pedestrians, taxis, cyclists, and street vendors formed a dance of organized chaos. For a moment, she felt awash in novelty, a raw energy that hummed through the veins of the metropolis. She walked until she found a modest and near a busy intersection. The neon sign overhead flickered, "Vacancy," in red letters. Stepping inside, she timidly requested a room. The innkeeper barely looked up from his register, handing her a key in exchange for some of the earth currency she had discreetly obtained from a money changer in a dim alley. Climbing the worn stairs, she settled into a small, dusty room. Though humble compared to the grand suites of Zara's palace, it felt like sanctuary, a space to rest and gather her thoughts. In the days that followed, Seraphis explored the city with careful curiosity, always mindful not to reveal her otherworldly origins. She had discovered that humans, while keenly observational, possessed a remarkable ability to rationalize away anything unusual, as long as it fit within their established worldview. A fleeting glow in her eyes might be attributed to a trick of the light, a strand of luminescence in her hair mistaken for a novelty hair accessory. Earth was full of wonders and diversions, and she found it surprisingly simple to melt into the background. Still, her heart felt lost. Each day was a slow march through an unfamiliar existence, haunted by the echo of her royal past. She missed the melodic hum of Zirin's stringed instruments, missed the comfort of her old attendants who would bring her sweet Sinro wine from the orchard groves, and, on rare nights, she even missed Valor. Despite his cruelty, there lingered an echo of the man she had once loved, somewhere buried beneath centuries of regal duty. One evening, pressed by hunger and longing for a slice of Earth's nightlife, she wandered into a low-lit bar on a corner street in Brooklyn. The sign outside read, "Moonlight Tavern," the letters glowing faintly. Inside, the atmosphere was warm and inviting. Soft music drifted from an old jukebox, and a handful of patrons chatted quietly over their drinks. Seraphis slipped onto a stool at the end of the bar, lowering her hood to reveal her delicate features, though she kept her hair carefully pinned to avoid its natural luminescence. A handsome young bartender, with dark, tousled hair and sharp, kind eyes, greeted her. His name tag read Liam. "Hey there," he said with a smile that momentarily disarmed her. "What can I get for you?" She hesitated, scanning the bottles behind him, alien names to her. Not exactly certain. Something mild, perhaps." He chuckled softly. "Mild, huh? I've got just the thing." With expert hands, he assembled a simple cocktail, garnishing it with a slice of fruit. Try this. She sipped tentatively, delighted by the gentle sweetness and tang. For a moment, she could almost pretend she was back in the orchard groves of Zara, tasting Senra wine. It's wonderful, she murmured, her voice soft yet resonant. A fleeting smile curved her lips, one that felt more real than any expression she had worn in weeks. Liam leaned on the bar, wiping down a glass. I haven't seen you around here before. Visiting? Yes, she replied, carefully avoiding specifics. Traveling for a while. Not certain how long I'll stay. He nodded, neither prying nor suspicious. Well, welcome. If you need anything, just let me know. Over the course of that evening and subsequent visits, she learned more about this man named Liam. He was originally from a small town in the Midwest, moved to New York in pursuit of a dream. Acting, he said, only to find that the city offered both opportunity and heartbreak in abundance. He had a warmth about him that transcended the usual politeness of strangers. There was a quiet kindness in his eyes, an underlying empathy that seemed to invite her to share her story without fear of judgment. Seraphis found herself returning to the Moonlight Tavern night after night, drawn by Liam's easy laughter and genuine interest. He told stories of stage auditions, comedic flops, near misses, and modest triumphs. In return, she offered carefully curated anecdotes, substituting her cosmic travels with tales of a distant kingdom to explain the sense of wonder she showed for everyday things. She learned that humans enjoyed modest flattery, praising the tavern's atmosphere, remarking on Liam's skill in mixing drinks, even complimenting his efforts to chase his dreams in such a vast city. In time, her facade as a mysterious foreigner became more convincing. Her sadness, though, did not wholly vanish. Late at night, after leaving the tavern, she would walk the city streets, her breath catching in her throat whenever she saw couples passing by, hand in hand. She thought of King Valor and what might have been, a child in her arms, an heir for the realm. More than that, she thought of the lost intimacy they once shared. In these moments, she felt the old grief coil around her heart, threatening to isolate her once more. Then one weekend, Liam invited her to a small theatrical production he was part of, a local troupe performing in a cramped, below-ground theater. Seraphis sat in the front row, gazing wide-eyed as Liam and his fellow actors brought a heartfelt drama to life. She felt an intense connection to the tragedy unfolding on the stage, a story of a nobleman forsaken by his family, forced into exile, only to find redemption in an unexpected alliance with a stranger. Tears welled in her eyes when the final scene concluded. She stood, clapping, discovering in that performance a strange reflection of her own journey. Afterward, she met him backstage, among scattered props and half-drawn curtains. He was still catching his breath, the glow of performance lingering in his cheeks. I hope it wasn't too grim for your taste, he said with a shy grin. It was splendid, she replied, her voice trembling with honesty. I understood the pain of that story more than I care to admit. He took a step closer, concern etched on his face. What do you mean? Her heart thudded in her chest, torn between fear of revealing her true identity and the yearning to confide in someone she trusted. In that moment, she settled on a halfway truth. I lost something important back home. It was taken from me because I couldn't fulfill a certain expectation. The pain has haunted me ever since. Liam rested his hands gently on her shoulders, a gesture so tender it sent a rush of warmth through her. I'm sorry. Sometimes it feels like the world can't see beyond what it thinks we should be. But you're more than any expectation. She felt a lump in her throat. That is kind of you to say, but you hardly know me, Liam. He smiled softly, stepping back. I know you enough to see you're a remarkable person. And for what it's worth, I like having you here, Seraphis. Whatever your story may be, I hope you'll keep sharing it. They parted ways that evening with a lingering glance. Seraphis returned to her cramped-in room, her heart dancing with a hope she thought long dead. That night, she dreamed of Zara's twin sons merging into a single, radiant star, an omen, perhaps, of unity or change. Days turned into weeks. Seraphis found a modest job at a used bookstore, where the quiet hush of worn pages soothed her. She managed her finances carefully, refusing to rely on the advanced currency she still had aboard the Astral Dawn, preferring instead to integrate into her new environment with humility. Each evening, after finishing her shift, she made her way to the tavern. Liam would greet her with a smile, and they'd share stories, confessions, and laughter until last call echoed through the smoky air. One blustery autumn night, as she prepared to leave, a sudden chill wind cut through the bar's entrance. She pulled her coat tighter around her. Liam offered to walk her back to her inn, explaining that the streets could be treacherous after dark. Grateful for his concern, she accepted. They strolled side by side under flickering streetlights, discussing everything from Earth's curious love of caffeinated beverages to the perplexing nature of reality TV. The conversation meandered toward deeper realms when Liam stopped abruptly, scanning her face beneath the wavering glow. He noticed the faint shimmer in her eyes, something he had glimpsed before, though never so clearly. Instead of fear or confusion, his expression was one of awe. "Your eyes, they catch the light in such an unusual way. It's beautiful," he murmured, almost reverently. Seraphis froze, her instinct warning her to deflect. But this time, she did not pull away. Instead, she leaned into the moment, her heart pounding so fiercely she feared he could hear it. It's a condition I have," she said softly. "Something I was born with. Don't worry about it." He nodded, not pressing her. "It's amazing is all." His gaze lingered for a moment. Then he smiled and resumed walking. "I didn't mean to pry. Good night, Seraphis. See you tomorrow?" She managed a trembling nod, feeling warmth surge through her chest. That night, for the first time since her exile, she felt less alone, less burdened by the secrets she carried. She pressed a hand against the collar of her coat, as if to calm her racing pulse. However, fate rarely allows such moments of serenity to go unchallenged. Far from Earth's orbit, a royal envoy had set out from Zera Prime. King Valor, facing pressure from the High Council, had grown increasingly anxious about the political implications of Seraphis's exile, her knowledge of court secrets, her potential alliances on foreign worlds, and the possibility that she might discover an alternative means to produce an heir. Rumors circulated that Seraphis's hidden lineage carried latent, potent powers that might awaken under the right circumstances. Fearing an upset to the Zeran line of succession, Valor dispatched a group of loyal enforcers with a single mandate: bring her back, or eliminate the threat she posed. Unaware of the shadows gathering, Seraphis continued her quiet life in New York, her bond with Liam deepening each day. They discovered joys in small things: a stroll through Central Park, sitting on a bench beneath a canopy of turning leaves, sharing hot beverages from street vendors. Sometimes, Liam recited lines from plays he was studying. Other times, they simply basked in each other's presence, letting the gentle hum of the city fill the silences. Gradually, she opened her heart to him, confessing in vague terms the betrayal she had suffered, the heartbreak of having her destiny, her very identity, snatched away. Liam listened intently, his eyes reflecting compassion rather than judgment. He never demanded the whole truth, satisfied with her halting explanations, as if respecting boundaries she was not yet ready to cross. And then came a night when everything changed. The tavern was closed, and they sat together in Liam's small apartment, a one-room dwelling above an old bakery. The smell of rising dough drifted through the floorboards, comforting and warm. Rain pattered against the windows, casting watery reflections of streetlights across the walls. Liam handed her a steaming mug of tea and sat on the battered couch beside her. "Seraphis," he said quietly, a tremor of uncertainty in his voice. "I know there's more to your story than you've let on. I don't want to push you, but I care about you. I can see the sadness in your eyes. If there's anything I can do." She set the mug down, tears pooling. The floodgates opened. Slowly, haltingly, she divulged more: that she was from another world, that her people had cast her aside because she could not fulfill their highest requirement, that the heartbreak she carried was not just emotional, but literal exile. She didn't dare remove her hair covering to show him the full extent of her alien features, for fear it might be too startling. But in that moment, she gave him enough that no plausible deniability could remain. He stared at her for a long, silent moment, absorbing the impossible truth. His immediate reaction was not revulsion or disbelief, but a tender concern that took her breath away. He reached out, taking her trembling hands in his. I've never heard a story like yours," he said, his voice catching. "But I believe you. When I look at you, I can feel there's something extraordinary about you. and I'm so sorry for what you've had to endure." She collapsed against him, sobbing softly, years of pent-up grief spilling forth. He held her close, murmuring quiet reassurances. In that vulnerable space, they crossed a threshold into deeper intimacy. For all her cosmic travels and regal upbringing, Seraphis had never felt a closeness so simple and profound. She pressed her face into his shoulder, breathing in his scent, feeling his human warmth mingle with her own. Something awakened within her then, a spark that surged through her veins like a sudden burst of starlight. When she finally lifted her gaze, she sensed an energy pulsing in her fingertips, a subtle glow that flickered around her hands. She quickly withdrew them, startled. Liam's eyes widened at the faint radiance. "Does that happen often?" he asked carefully. She shook her head, breathless. "It shouldn't. I used to have certain abilities, but they were dormant for a long time, especially after I realized I could not conceive a child. It was said that my capacity to bear an heir was directly linked to the deeper energies within me. When that was stripped away, I thought I'd lost my powers forever." They sat there for a long time, the rain drumming a steady lullaby against the panes. Liam's acceptance blossomed into awe. Maybe it's coming back now because you're healing. Or because you're here." Her lips quivered into a smile that soon became a soft laugh. "Perhaps it's you," she whispered, tracing her fingers over his cheek. "Perhaps you're the key that lets me rediscover a part of myself I thought lost." In the days that followed, Seraphis felt her powers re-emerge in small, miraculous ways. She found she could manipulate bits of light, forming shimmering motes that hovered around her hands. With concentration, she summoned illusions of flickering shapes, ephemeral but enchanting. The color in her cheeks grew more radiant, and her confidence, once shattered, began to rebuild. Liam stood by her side, encouraging her, marveling at each new manifestation. They practiced in secret, closing the curtains in his apartment to hide the glowing orbs she conjured. Their bond deepened beyond any simple notion of romance. It was as if two wounded souls had found a healing synergy, bridging the gap between worlds with honest affection. Meanwhile, the Ziran envoy inched ever closer. They arrived on Earth, scanning the planet for her unique energy signature. Using advanced cloaking devices, they evaded detection by human authorities, systematically pinpointing her location. Their mission was absolute. Some of them believed Seraphis needed to be brought home, lest she strengthen and challenge Vaylor's rule. Others felt the best course was to eliminate her, ensuring no threat could ever arise. Seraphis, attuned to distant psychic echoes from her homeworld, sensed the danger long before they arrived in her neighborhood. A stirring in her mind, like a distant thunder, warned her that old shadows had found her trail. She confided in Liam, who immediately suggested they leave the city, retreat someplace safer. She considered it, but her renewed powers suggested a different course of action, one that involved confronting her pursuers. No longer content to cower, she decided to face them on her own terms. With Liam's help, she devised a plan. They would lure the envoy to a deserted part of the city, an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts where few people ventured. There, Seraphis could control the environment, ensuring human bystanders remained out of harm's way. The night of reckoning came. Dark clouds swallowed the moon, and a bitter wind swept through the quiet streets. Liam stood by her side, tension etched on his face. "Are you sure about this?" he asked, scanning the desolate alley. "We could still run." She shook her head resolutely. "No, this ends now. I won't let them hunt me forever, and I won't live in fear. If they expect me to be powerless, they're mistaken." Within moments, the envoy appeared, half a dozen figures robed in sleek, metallic garments that shimmered unnaturally, each wearing a helmet tinted in the regal purple of Zera. One stepped forward, removing his helmet to reveal an angular face and eyes that glowed faintly green. "Zarenth, Vaylor's most trusted warlord." "Queen Seraphis," he said mockingly, his voice amplified by a hidden device. "You are ordered to return to Zera Prime at once, by royal command. Your presence here is an affront to our king." Liam bristled at the tone, stepping forward to stand protectively beside Seraphis. She placed a hand on his arm, softly calming him. "And if I refuse?" she replied, her voice steady and regal, as though summoning the queenly authority she once relinquished. Zarenth's lips curled into a sneer. We will bring you by force, or see to it that you never threaten the crown again." Seraphis lifted her chin. She could feel the power buzzing at her fingertips. "You took everything from me," she said, her voice echoing through the cavernous warehouse. "You exiled me for failing to produce an heir, never once seeking an alternative. Now you come to claim me because you fear I might possess a new destiny. I will not be your pawn, nor Valer's. Leave peacefully or face the consequences." The envoy bristled, charging their energy weapons. A swirling hum filled the air as pulses of light erupted from their gauntlets. Seraphis moved with instinctual grace, summoning a barrier of shimmering force that deflected the blasts, scattering radiant sparks across the concrete floor. Liam stood behind her, eyes wide, astonished at the raw display of her might. Then, with a dramatic sweep of her arms, Seraphis retaliated. Threads of luminescent energy spiraled from her hands, binding two of the guards in glowing cords that crackled with starlight. They struggled, but the bonds held. Another guard lunged at her from behind, brandishing a blade of superheated plasma. Liam intervened, tackling the attacker to the ground with a burst of adrenaline. Though outmatched technologically, his determination and well-timed strike allowed Seraphis to send a bolt of energy that disarmed the guard. Xerinth, however, was far stronger. He unleashed a concentrated beam of cobalt fire, forcing Seraphis to focus her power into a shimmering shield. She grimaced under the strain, her muscles quivering. With each second, Xerinth's beam grew more intense, pressing against her defenses. A creeping sense of doubt threatened to unravel her resolve, until she felt Liam's hand clasp hers. His touch grounded her, as if transferring a burst of human courage into her weary soul. Emboldened by his support, Seraphis let out a resounding cry. A pillar of white-gold light erupted around her, absorbing Xerinth's assault and sending it hurtling back. The warlord roared in surprise as his own energy enveloped him, knocking him and the remaining guards backward. When the dazzling brilliance finally subsided, Xerinth collapsed to one knee, panting. His subordinates lay scattered, incapacitated or bound by Seraphis's luminous cords. She advanced, her eyes blazing with cosmic fury, but also tempered by compassion. She gazed down at Xerinth, who managed to glare back, still defiant. "You will deliver a message to King Valer," she said, her voice echoing with authority she never believed she could reclaim. "Tell him I will not return to Zera as a slave or a prisoner. If he wants to talk, he must come in peace. And if he threatens me again, he will learn that I am not as powerless as he believed." Xerinth spat in rage, but he could not stand. Seraphis turned away, gesturing for Liam to follow. Without another word, they left the warehouse, disappearing into the labyrinth of streets. The battered envoy eventually regrouped, dragging their injured back to their cloaked vessel, departing Earth's atmosphere under a shroud of secrecy to report their failure. In the aftermath, Seraphis and Liam retreated to the quiet of his apartment. The weight of the confrontation seeped into every muscle of her body. She slumped onto the couch, breathing heavily. Liam sat beside her, gently wiping sweat from her brow. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice hushed. She nodded, exhaustion lining her features. "Yes, thanks to you." He gave a small, shaky laugh. "I doubt I did much." "You did everything," she whispered, placing a hand over his. "I've never felt so strong, so certain, in all my life. And you gave me the courage to stand up for myself. Liam, you mean more to me than you could possibly know." His cheeks flushed, and for a moment, he seemed at a loss for words. Then, he leaned in, pressing his lips gently to hers. The kiss was hesitant at first, a sweet, unfolding tenderness that spoke of gratitude, relief, and a growing love that transcended worlds. She responded in kind, tears gathering in her eyes, tears of joy and renewal. Time seemed to suspend in that moment. The city's sirens, the hum of traffic, the entire swirling chaos of humanity outside. Everything faded until it was only the two of them, quietly breathing in the wonder of what they had found. In the weeks and months that followed, the threat of Xeren interference lessened. Word reached them, through hidden channels that Seraphis still knew how to access, that King Valer wrestled with the political fallout of the failed capture. Many in the High Council believed it wiser to leave her in exile, especially since she had regained her powers and demonstrated the will to use them. Others whispered that perhaps Valor should negotiate, seeking an alliance that might benefit Zera in the face of galactic uncertainties. But Valor's pride was legendary, and for the time being, he sequestered himself, unwilling to face the shame of acknowledging his exiled queen's newfound strength. With the immediate danger averted, Seraphis and Liam built a life of quiet contentment. She continued working at the bookstore, even as her powers occasionally manifested in small, humorous ways, like causing floating lights to circle new releases or conjuring illusions of fantastical creatures for curious children. She learned to control these abilities better, focusing on the calm she found in Liam's presence, ensuring no accidents disrupted her carefully maintained secrecy. Their relationship blossomed into a deep partnership, filled with shared hopes and comforting routines. They laughed over cooking mishaps in the cramped apartment kitchen, strolled hand in hand along the East River at twilight, and even traveled beyond the city, taking a train ride to the countryside where the stars were more visible. On those moonlit nights, they lay side by side on an old picnic blanket, gazing upward at constellations that reminded Seraphis of home. Yet Earth had become her true home now, anchored by love and acceptance she had never known. Eventually, after much reflection, Seraphis decided to reveal her starship to Liam. She led him to the hidden clearing in the Adirondacks, far from prying eyes, guiding him into the astral dawn's streamlined corridors. He marveled at the advanced instrumentation, the glistening Xeran symbols that adorned the cockpit. He ran his fingers over the smooth panels, wide-eyed like a child discovering a secret kingdom. Despite the wonder, she could see a trace of trepidation in his gaze. "What do you plan to do?" he asked softly, stepping away from the pilot's seat. "Will you stay on Earth, or will you go back to Zera Prime?" She laced her fingers with his. "I won't abandon Earth. This is where I found myself again. It's where I found you. But I won't deny my heritage either. My people still matter to me, even if they cast me out." He nodded, thinking carefully. Could we ever visit your world?" Her heart fluttered at the question. Once, the idea would have been impossible, a taboo. But now, with her renewed powers and the chance to redefine her destiny, perhaps it was not so far-fetched. "If the time is right, if peace can be found, then yes," she said. "I'd want to show you the crystal gardens of Mothralis, the swirling dunes of the Mirafin Desert, the violet oceans that shimmer under twin suns. There is so much beauty in Zera." He grinned, pulling her close. "Then we'll face that horizon someday. Together." Seasons passed, each bringing fresh experiences and deepening their bond. Liam advanced in his theatrical pursuits, landing bigger roles in off-Broadway productions. Seraphis, buoyed by her sense of purpose, found that her knowledge of advanced science and healing arts could be subtly applied to help local communities in need, advising doctors in hush-hush conversations, or volunteering at shelters to bring some measure of relief. Each act of kindness allowed her to give back to the world that had accepted her. And so, life wove a pattern of love and quiet fortitude. The specter of Valor's condemnation lingered in the background, but it no longer held the terror it once did. In time, word arrived from distant galaxies that Valor had taken a new consort, desperate to produce the heir he believed paramount for the throne. Seraphis felt only a pang of sadness at the news, not the searing pain she once endured. She had found her own path, shaped by hope rather than regret. It was on a clear spring morning that Liam proposed, in the simple intimacy of their apartment. He knelt beside the couch where she was reading a worn copy of an Earth classic, Pride and Prejudice, borrowed from the bookstore. With a ring he had saved up for months to purchase, he spoke words that trembled with sincerity. "Seraphis, I love you more than any stage role, more than any dream I've ever had. Will you marry me?" Tears sparkled in her alien eyes, and she laughed through the sudden surge of emotion, finding it amusing that after centuries of life, an earthly custom could fill her with such wonder. "I will," she whispered, slipping her hand into his. The ring glinted, a modest diamond catching sunlight in a way that reminded her of starlight. In that warm glow, she saw her future unfold with promise. They decided on a small ceremony in the countryside, far from the city's bustle. Only a handful of trusted friends attended, those who had grown close to them and would not question Seraphis's background too deeply. The vows they exchanged were a blend of Earth's traditions and subtle references to Zera's once sacred rites. Instead of large choirs or orchestrated fanfare, the soundtrack to their union was the quiet rustling of leaves and the gentle laughter of friends. When they kissed beneath an arch of wildflowers, Seraphis swore she could feel the cosmos itself rejoice, as if the winds carried blessings from distant stars. In the weeks after the wedding, she noticed small changes in her body, a lightness in her step, a pleasant swirl of energy in her core that felt different from anything she had experienced before. A subtle glow sometimes enveloped her at dawn, a gentle prickle at the nape of her neck. She wondered if it was just the euphoria of love or something more. Then, one evening, she felt a stirring within, a sign so profound that her breath caught in her throat. With trembling excitement, she confided in Liam. "Liam," she said softly, taking his hand and placing it over her stomach. I think we might be expecting a child." His eyes went wide, a mixture of joy and disbelief. "A child," he echoed. "But I thought—" He trailed off, recalling her heartbreak over her supposed infertility. She smiled through tears. "I did too. But everything has changed. My powers returned when you came into my life. Maybe love really can work miracles. Maybe the old prophecies were wrong. Or maybe they meant that I had to find true connection to awaken what lay dormant." Overcome with emotion, Liam embraced her. They wept together, tears of gratitude for a future neither had dared imagine. As her pregnancy advanced, an aura of ethereal radiance surrounded her. Friends laughed, attributing it to the pregnancy glow. Though little did they know it was a cosmic phenomenon, an intermingling of Xeran heritage and human vitality. Despite lingering caution, none of the old threats materialized. Zera's monarchy, struggling with its own internal politics, had neither the will nor the resources to mount another excursion to Earth. King Valor, upon hearing the news, reacted with a mixture of disbelief and searing regret. Rumors circulated that he grew erratic, haunted by nightmares of losing not just a wife, but a legacy that might never come to fruition. Yet that turmoil no longer touched Seraphis's life. In time, she gave birth to a daughter under the soft glow of Earth's moonlight, in a tranquil birthing center near the countryside. The baby's eyes gleamed with hints of starlight, her cries resonating with an uncanny beauty. Liam cradled their daughter, tears streaming down his face. "She's perfect," he whispered. So perfect." Seraphis watched them, her heart overflowing. She remembered the imposing halls of Zera Prime, the heartbreak of Valor's condemnation, the lonely voyage across the stars, her first uncertain steps in New York. All of it led to this moment, an unforeseen destiny that she had carved out of love, courage, and faith. She pressed a gentle kiss to the baby's forehead, feeling an overwhelming sense of completion. They named her Aria, after a celestial phenomenon in Xeran lore, a mysterious melody said to echo through the vacuum of space, bringing hope to drifting travelers. It was a fitting name for a child born of two worlds, a child who embodied possibility and reconciliation. In the years that followed, Seraphis and Liam lived a life that merged the ordinary and the extraordinary. They raised Aria with stories of Earth and Zera alike. Sometimes, Seraphis conjured illusions to lull her daughter to sleep, shimmering cosmic mobiles that danced above the crib. Other times, Liam sang Earth lullabies, gently rocking the child in his arms. Aria grew, bright and inquisitive, her laughter lighting up rooms like rays of dawn. Eventually, when she was old enough to understand, Seraphis unveiled the astral dawn for her, teaching her about her mother's origins, about a kingdom that once considered her a barren queen. She explained how love had transcended everything, forging a new path no one had predicted. Aria listened with wide, gleaming eyes, occasionally asking if they might visit that distant realm someday. Seraphis always smiled and said, "One day, if it's meant to be, we will journey there as a family." And so it was that Queen Seraphis, once cast aside and broken, found a life richer and more profound than any she could have imagined within the gilded confines of Zera Prime's palace. Through a simple human named Liam, she rekindled her powers, discovered the truth of her own potential, and bore a daughter whose very existence rewrote the destiny once denied her. Though the stars still shimmered with countless possibilities, one truth remained constant. Love, genuine and unwavering, held the power to bridge galaxies, heal the deepest wounds, and create miracles where none had been foreseen. In the end, her story was neither tragedy nor footnote to another's ambition. It was a tale of renewal, hope, and the gentle triumph of compassion over cruelty. Exiled no more, Seraphis walked the length of both earth and sky with her husband at her side and her child in her arms, grateful every day for the chance to live, to love, and to shine, just as the cosmos intended.